Good Monday morning. It's been a while. 3 years, to be precise. Time flies. I just turned 40 a couple of weeks ago. Fun Function is back. The working name for this reboot has been Dawn of the Data Developer. After I put the channel on hiatus 3 years ago, my career has just galloped away into a data engineering, data science, data analytics, data visualization direction. And I think that it's not me that is moving in that way. I think it is the world and the industry and software development that is moving in that way. During the last 3 years, I've learned a lot. It's like a good time to go back to YouTube. You're still going to see some of the familiar elements and tone of Fun Function, but there's also going to be some completely new things in a completely new direction in a way. I'm rebooting this channel a little bit shamanistically. I'm not entirely sure what it's going to be about yet. That is something that you and I have to find out together. I have to see what I'm interested in talking about and what you are interested in watching. But I do know two things.
The central tenet of the channel is...
If you're completely new here on this channel, some introductions are in order. I am MPJ. I have been a software developer for about 20 years or so. I worked at Spotify for 4 years as a front-end engineer on the desktop client. Worked a lot with JavaScript. It was back then in 2015 when I launched Fun Function. Today we're going to code a neural network from scratch. Oh, what? Don't worry if you're confused. That is normal. This is not intuitive in any way. The task that you are doing.
Could you say x equals this dot state dot x like divided by 2?
In skill level, it needs to be at the edge of your abilities, but not outside of them.
So our neural network is kind of smart now. It still has a little bit of a problem with... Whoa! It's slightly wrong. It adjusts making huge turns every time. It's kind of like a drunk person overreacting to every single oh my god, I have to say right, I have to say left.
I co-created Redux.
I click and absolutely nothing happens. None of us has any idea what they're doing. That is the definition of being a developer. Good morning! Our first speaker of today is going to tell a story about
cellular automata. Yeah.
That's what it should look like. We all have that phase.
And then that was the phase in which I was like, I'm going to do Python for all of my data processing and cleaning.
This is why Haskell programmers cannot have nice things.
All of us are confused. And that is fine. That feeling of confusion, that's our fun. It means we're learning.
And that is just so important.
But I do know two things.
The central tenet of the channel is going to be data. Data is just endlessly fascinating. I put this channel on hiatus about 3 years ago, went out to work in the industry again, worked a bit as VP of Engineering, a bit of VP of Data, spent some time actually working for Polkadot or Parity Technologies that builds Polkadot. We'll talk about more about the story of this tattoo later. It feels like the last 3 years of my data convergence has not really been intentional as much as it has been natural. It's not me that is moving in that way. I think it is the world and the industry and software development that is moving in that way. There is something completely new happening right now, a kind of reboot, an opening that I refer to as data development. And there really are no university degrees for this developer. It's just too broad and fuzzy and unclear. And it is in these moments where the playing field is leveled and you can just jump in. You don't need to know anything because nobody knows anything. I think that there has been no better time in history to learn software development. If you're an existing developer, it's a great time to jump into data, but it's also such a great time to show some of your friends that has been on the edges, to show the wonders of being a builder of software instead of just a consumer of it. I truly believe that this time we're living in is the dawn of the data developer. It's a new class of developer. They're not quite data engineers, data scientists, they're not quite data visualizers, they're not quite analysts. They are something that spans all of them. If that is enough to pique your interest and you want to be along for the ride, then do not subscribe, do not like, do not ring that notification bell. Instead, navigate to funfun.email and sign up, and I'll send you data developer delights every Monday morning. Email is how you wrestle away control of your attention from the big companies that control the algorithms that tell you where to look. Email is an inbox that you control. The second thing that I know is that I want to ask your help as the original gangster Fun Fun Function audience to welcome in a wider audience. Not everybody, but the person that I'm trying to nail down is a near developer. In the last few years, programming is becoming more accessible without people really understanding that they are effectively doing software development, doing really advanced things in Notion without really understanding that they are learning relational databases. Recently, LLMs, large language models, have really leapfrogged in their capabilities.
This is the new computer industry. Software is no longer programmed just by computer engineers. Software is programmed by computer engineers working with AI supercomputers.
Seriously, this is some time-saving shit. To start, we can say, can you create flashcards on whatever topic? I'll say Plato's Dialogue, since that's what I'm currently reading and studying.
AI is amazing, but needs to be orchestrated. You need to pull one AI from here and then another AI to inspect it, and you need to combine them together. It is also very error prone. It's very compute intensive, so you have to constrain costs a lot. I think that this group could be just tremendously empowered if we could just show them then that what they are doing is just software development in a convoluted way on other people's platforms, and that programming languages are essentially just languages for humans. It's just that they are very specific about their expressing intent. English and AI prompting is rather limited. Once you start getting into the nitty-gritty and you want to be very specific around what it is that you want the AI to do, you more or less get into programming again. Even though it's an AI doing things, you need specific expressions. Most of the work that a programmer does is actually something more like that I refer to as modeling, figuring out what exactly to tell the computer, and that's why we have programming languages. I hope that we can bring this group in and show them that programming is not arcane, it's not scary, it's pretty much what you already do. We'll just give you more expression power with a programming language. AI is mostly about having good data sets. Like an AI model will never be better than the data it's trained on.
This is Elaine Hertzberg. She died 49 years old in Tempe, Arizona. Her death is the first recorded case of a pedestrian killed by a self-driving car. This is a slide from a talk by Andrej Karpathy, the head of AI at Tesla, speaking at UC Berkeley, explaining that when he was a PhD student, he lost 95% of his sleep thinking about models and algorithms, but today, running AI at Tesla, he loses 95% of his sleep thinking about datasets.
If you read the National Transportation Safety Board report, you find something really striking, which was that the system basically did not have any training data of jaywalkers. What's more, the system was built on this object classification system that had a very rigid set of categories that included pedestrians, cyclists, debris, etc., and had thousands of examples of each of those things. But this particular woman was walking a bicycle across the street, which was something that the system had never seen.
The evening of March 18th, 2018 wasn't an example of humans behaving at their very best. It was a dark evening and Elaine was wearing dark clothing and she was crossing the road over 100 meters away from the nearest crosswalk. Toxicology reports also showed traces of methamphetamine and cannabis. The self-driving Uber had a backup driver that was tasked to catch AI mistakes, but she didn't react in time. It was a difficult thing in the first place to spot Elaine in the dark with human eyes. And it didn't help that the human driver was also listening to the voice on one phone and checking Slack on the other, and eventually the driver pleaded guilty to endangerment.
But if I was a Volvo XC90 in the story, I would have felt really unappreciated by the AI, especially given my contributions as a car. The car would say, "This should have been a day to shine for AI." Unlike humans, AI is immune to the allures of methamphetamine, Slack notifications, and Carson Daly. And the AI was driving me. I am a moving fortress of airbags surrounded by Swedish steel. I have a zero-death track record since my release in 2002. If you're an artificial intelligence driving me, you don't need to concern yourself with the trolley problem. You can just turn the wheel to the left or the right, swerve me off the road, and I'll make sure to keep the driver alive and, quite frankly, probably comfy. The humans will go all anthropomorphic and won't see it, blame a meth addict combined with a overworked, slacking Uber driver. But I, the Volvo XC90 that you were driving, equipped with 8 radars, 1 LiDAR, 12 ultrasonic sensors, 11 cameras, of which 2 are long-range front cameras, at your disposal. I'm the only one in this situation that did what they were supposed to do. My dear AI, in this situation, you were the only one in position to save Elaine's life.
Getting good data sets is never going to be the cool part of AI, but it's going to be the most important. How kind and smart AI becomes and our systems in general becomes is going to be dependent on how good the data we are feeding it. You have probably noticed that a big problem in general in the world right now is that we are having trouble agreeing on truth, with many people citing that their science is the right science. It's not for the lack of data, that's for sure. We have lots of data in the world. But we are having trouble making it accessible in credible, clear, understandable ways. In fact, we're generating 3,800 terabytes per second. That's so dumb. I mean, that's so hard to grasp. We would need 475 Mac Pros at maximum spec. We would have to buy 475 of those per second in order to handle that data load. So the problem is not lack of data, its problem is that lots of that is just not used for anything. Just sitting there somewhere. A close friend of mine works with open data science, and with scientific data, it's extremely difficult to actually get out the observations behind the scientific reports. The reports are basically just summaries of the findings. The actual findings are just stored in a database on some university or somewhere. And the report themselves are also really hard to get at. They're often behind paywalls and stuff. I'm not saying that data development will solve every alignment problem in the world. There are other aspects to agreeing, but if we don't have clear data, it's going to be very hard. So this is why I'm going to be spending a lot of time on this channel with unclean data. Create an army of these data extraction ferrets on this channel, because we are going to need a lot of them. Quite frankly, for humanity's sake, I think. We are going to become analysts, querying data, figuring out how to build reports and making sense of data. That means that I have finally learned Python and I would love to teach it to you as well. In general, Python is a lovely language. It's not that far from JavaScript, so you pick it up right away. And if you don't know JavaScript, actually Python is even easier. It's often hailed as the most accessible programming language in the world. Python was a language that I didn't really get into because it's, especially when it comes to data analytics, it's a little bit unapproachable. Python that you use for data analytics is a bit different. You tend to use a math library called pandas, and pandas meta programs as hell. And that makes it just hard to understand what you're dealing with. You just like look at the code and you just like, what is this object even? I can't infer it from reading. But with AI, you can just ask it, what is this thing, on concepts that were previously ungoogleable. One thing that I want to mention about analytics in particular is how supercharged by large language models that it is. When you're working with data, it's not like interfaces where you upload the application and there will be input in the thing. You're actually working with the things going through the code. So the AI knows both the data and the code at the same time. And that makes it really easy for the AI models to help you a lot more. It's just incredible what the AI can do for you. It seems like I can do 10 times faster as an analyst now compared to the speed that I did at Spotify back in the day when I was doing a little bit of data there. And they had a state-of-the-art data platform with hundreds of engineers on it. And of course, we're going to learn statistics! In a very fun way. Because honestly, statistics is hilarious and incredibly cool. When you know statistics, it gives you this truer sight of reality. There's this saying, the plural of anecdote is not data. And I just love that. Intuitively, as a human, you see like multiple examples of things. Once you see 3 general examples of something, 3 examples of something that looks the same, then your brain starts generalizing. But with data, like, that's just not enough to understand something from a statistical standpoint. You might just have had, like, that might just have been your sample, but it's how our neurology learns. We're meant to survive in environments where there's very little data, so we learn very fast, which means that we accept learning incorrectly. But once you start understanding statistics, you find yourself changing. You find yourself just more skeptical and like, well, it might just be here, you know? And it often is. Given that so many people here have a JavaScript background, I think that the best place to start is data visualization. A lot of it is going to be using D3.js, which is an extremely powerful data visualization framework developed by the New York Times. You can kind of think of D3 being positioned for data the way React is positioned for clicky interfaces. It's sort of the industry standard for interactive data visualization, and it's just like super powerful, extremely good skill to have, and will only become more important. I think it's particularly good to start with because it will exploit so many of your existing skills, like JavaScript, sense of front-end interaction, interacting with external APIs and sources. It's just not a lot of extra things that you need to learn. I imagine that we will also be spending a lot of time in data pipelines and automation. I think this is actually where we can bring in a lot of new developers or the near developers that I talked about earlier.
Automations are really where Honeybook comes to life and really saves me so much time.
Super excited about it, super nerdy. I'm going to be talking about my #1 key to success when it comes to converting potential clients into customers in my photography business, and that is
going through and not dismissing the power of having some type of client flow and putting systems in place, okay? That is going to be key, putting that in place.
So we're gonna go over here to tools, and under essentials, you'll click on automations. We're going to choose a new automation. I can respond to people that fill out this form in my sleep, while I'm eating, while I'm driving. The point is you're able to automate it so you're not having to manually send those thank you emails or scheduling emails.
You can go through and automate certain process because you know what those processes are because you actually have them mapped out. What does your front end look like to your particular clients? What does this actually look like? What does your back end look like? So if you're putting everything here, you're like, this is manual, then this is work.
Our Zapier automation is going to trigger and save her at least 20 to 30 minutes in this process.
As a software developer, I really like clearly defining and modeling concepts because you need to in order to explain it to a computer so that it can compute. If we are going to build artificial intelligence, we better goddamn understand what intelligence is in its normal state. And this is what jumps us into all kinds of interesting fields like psychology, neuroscience, child psychology. Everybody that basically works with teaching intelligence and relating to intelligence can start bringing things into the field. I spent 2 years after Fun Functions hiatus to working at Mindler, an online psychology startup. So I spent an enormous amount of time around psychologists. And one thing that stayed with me that I learned there is that we think of traditionally as the neurology living in up here in the brain. But our neurology actually lives throughout our entire body. Just merely our stomachs have more neurons than 2 cat brains. Our bodies are quite intelligent, and in order to understand intelligence and model it correctly, we inevitably need to understand our bodies as well. This is becoming like a huge interest of mine with like a lot of stuff like breathwork, body awareness, and movement. There might be some breathwork on this channel, quite frankly. I've been getting a lot into it because it's an amazing way of just controlling our neurology. This thing over here, it's a sadhu board. It's one of those yogi things with spikes that you stand on. It's ADHD heaven. Oh yeah, by the way, I was diagnosed with ADHD these last 3 years. Nobody's surprised, I guess. And probably will get into some poetry as well. I don't know why I have this intuition that poetry might be related to all of this. If you have any idea why I feel like that, do comment down below if you're a poetry nerd. Yeah, so that's a few of my ideas. Oh my god, we might need more people. Let me know if there's anything of it that appealed particularly to you, or if there is something that I didn't think about that you would like to see in this new direction of Fun Function. Finally, reminder again, to stay updated on this journey. I do love writing so much. I love the written word. It's how I got started prior to video. And I do really look forward to crafting something really nice for you every week. I think that's it. With that said, I think that we can consider Fun Function officially relaunched. It's going to be very interesting to see how far we can go with this thing together. It's just a wild era in the world to live in right now. Some really awful things happening and some really wonderful things. On some days the world makes me feel dark, on some days it makes me feel light, and the days that feel light has often correlated with being exposed to some of the spectacular people that I've run across through this channel. You really are a spectacular bunch. The heart and caliber of the Fun Function community is just wild and gives me great hope for the world. I am MPJ. Until next time, stay curious.